This meeting is being recorded.
Now we're ready. Okay, this is a web-based meeting, so we are operating under the following procedures. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. Recording will be available within 24 hours and be posted on the Town of Waterford's Planning Department website. To ensure good sound quality, the default rule for this meeting is that everyone will remain on mute unless they are speaking. If an attendee creates an audio or video disruption, the Zoom moderator may place them on mute or remove them from the meeting if the disruption continues. We will not use the chat feature in this meeting. We appreciate your attendance at this meeting, and should you have any questions about the process, you may call our staff at 860-444-5813 between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. And with that, I turn the meeting over to the chair.
Good afternoon. We'll call to order now at 4 minutes past 5, or 5 minutes past 4, rather. We do not need to appoint any alternates, correct? That's correct. All right. Item 2, plan reviews. PL 2310 requested Concora Waterford LLC applicant and owner for a modified site plan approval for a restaurant for property located at 122 and 124 Boston Post Road, PPD 1 zone in accordance with sections 19 and 30.1 of the zoning regulations, and as shown on plans entitled Phase 2 site plan for 122, 124 Boston Post Road, Waterford, Connecticut. And I will now turn it over to the presenters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes. Terrific. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Bill Sweeney. I am a partner and a land use attorney with the law firm of Tobin Carberry in New London. And as always, I appreciate the opportunity to present before you. Tonight, or this afternoon, I represent Concora Waterford LLC, which is a Connecticut limited liability company, and it's the owner of the Aldi's Plaza, located at 122 and 124 Boston Post Road in Waterford. My client has submitted an application to the P&Z Commission for site plan approval of Phase 2 of the Aldi's Plaza Master Design Plan, and this site plan consists of a 2,325 square foot Chipotle restaurant on the last remaining vacant development pad on site. Some of you may have been involved in the review of Phase 1 of this project about 7 years ago. My client previously obtained a zone change and a master plan approval back in the May of 2016 under what is called the Planned Design District regulations. And that approval created a flexible zoning district, which is labeled on the zoning map as PDD 1. And this is a master plan district where future development is governed by a plan that's approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And that master plan is still in effect today. The master plan that was approved sets forth specifically tailored bulk and dimensional standards for a property, as well as a list of allowable uses and also other applicable design standards, including landscaping, lighting, other site design elements like signage, and it does in fact allow restaurants as a permitted use by site plan approval. Joining me on the remote meeting tonight or this afternoon is Brian McCarthy. Brian is a project civil engineer with RJ O'Connell, and I also have Bill McCabe and Mark Mancuso, who are the principals with Concora Waterford. As I said, we have an application pending before P&Z. We're going to be going before them at 6:30 this evening. But at this time, what I'd like to do is provide you some important background on the application, highlight some key aspects of the project, and basic compliance with the master plan, which is the governing document for this site. Mr. O'Connell is going to review with you the project layout, and he's going to focus particularly on landscaping for the project, which we've spent a lot of time on in close consultation with Mark and John Mullen to make sure that the project has a certain aesthetic appeal. And then Mr. McCabe is going to walk you through the architectural designs for the new restaurant building. We actually modified these designs from sort of the brand or the prototype for Chipotle to meet the requirements for the master plan district and to try to create some harmony and consistency throughout the buildings in the development. And he'll also share with you some renderings that we did at the request of Mr. Mullen to show you what the project's going to look like from Boston Post Road. So he'll show those at the end of our presentation. Just a little bit of background. If Brian, if you could share your screen and share slide 1 of our presentation, put it up.
I just need to be allowed access or allowed to share, Mark.
Sure. We're all set?
So, yeah, I think I have it here now.
Just want to change the tab, click on the tab for the Chipotle restaurant, maybe.
That's it right there. There we go.
There you go. Perfect.
That's good. Too many things open at once here.
Happens. So if you look at the slide that's on the screen right now, as you're likely aware, the property that that's involved today was formerly owned by the Picardi family, a longtime Waterford family. It was occupied by a bowling alley before 2016 and a bank, which is today M&T Bank. In the past, it was People's Bank, I believe, located along the Boston Post Road frontage. Back in 2016, almost 7 years ago, or basically 7 years to the month, actually, my client optioned the property, and we approached the town with a plan to tear down the bowling alley, maintain the bank, and then redevelop the balance of the site for new commercial use. As I said before, we use that flexible zoning tool in the zoning code to develop a master plan for the site. That master plan was approved in May of 2016. And then phase 1, which I believe this board reviewed, was the Aldi supermarket project. And that was approved in August of 2016 by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Aldi's grocery store has been, extremely successful, and we constructed that, and we constructed all the infrastructure for the site, the access, primary access off Boston Post Road, the secondary access on Minor Lane, and the parking field and access drives of the site. However, at the time of the original master plan approval, we hadn't gotten additional tenants for the balance of the site, and the area that's sort of L-shaped and marked site is the phase 2 area, which today remains a vacant development pad. As you can see, phase 2 is a little bit unusually shaped. It's somewhat long and narrow. And again, it's located on the western edge of the property, adjacent to the Ocean State job lot property. If we go to the next slide. So due to the fact that we didn't actually have tenants back in 2016 for the phase 2, in an abundance of caution, we proposed a fairly intensive conceptual development for phase 2, and that consisted of 2 buildings. Right up on the street, we had a 4,320 square foot restaurant with a full service, with the potential for a full service drive-through. And we also had an 8,100 square foot retail building sort of between Aldi's and that location as well. As part of our original master plan, we went through the project, gave traffic analysis for both of the uses, and the commission reviewed that and actually approved the master plan. And then again, we went ahead and developed phase 1. If we can move to slide 3 now. So 7 years have passed, and we've had a lot of interest in the phase 2 parcel, but we haven't been able to actually solidify any lease arrangement until this spring. We actually recently entered into a lease subject to town approvals with Chipotle to build a restaurant on the phase 2 parcel. And we've been working with your staff since the spring over with a variety of issues regarding the project, involving design, architectural treatment of the building, and other issues to the site, including important elements like landscaping. And again, it's this sort of reconfigured phase 2 development that we're going before the P&Z tonight with. As you can see, based on square footage below, this is an entirely smaller project than initially proposed. There's only a single building. There's no 8,100 square foot retail building, and the restaurant is basically cut in half in size. You can see what looks to be a drive-through lane around the building, but in fact, Chipotle doesn't do drive-through lanes. This is what we call a digital pickup window. So you can place your order for burritos or tacos online, and you actually come and pick them up at the window. There is no on-site ordering. There's no order board or anything like that. So what that means is significantly less traffic than you would get at, for instance, a Starbucks or a McDonald's. And so it's a much lower intensity development all around. Now, obviously, this differs from what we showed on the master plan 7 years ago, but the regulations allow us to deviate from the master plan as long as we don't increase building coverage, increase the height of buildings, decrease parking, decrease landscaping. We're allowed to make those kinds of changes through the site plan approval process. And in fact, that's what we've done here in our situation. We have significantly reduced the amount of building. We've maintained our building heights. We've actually added additional parking. And as you're going to see, as Brian presents the plan, we've substantially increased the landscaping involved with the project, all things that we're allowed to do without any master plan reapproval. I do want to just say, I know, you're going to be focused primarily on building and building design and landscaping, but we did also run traffic study for this project, and we've demonstrated and submitted a report that the overall traffic generation for phase 2 goes down dramatically from what we proposed 7 years ago. And in fact, a lot of our assumptions were extremely conservative 7 years ago. And so this project, when built, is not going to create any traffic issues. In fact, it's going to drastically improve traffic based on what we actually got approved 7 years ago. So these are all changes for the positive. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Brian to walk you through the layout, the access, talk a little bit about how the building sits on the site. And then he's going to get into some other engineering details, again, focusing primarily on landscaping. And then we're going to turn it over to Bill to talk about the building. So with that, Brian.
Yep. So for the record, Brian McCarthy with RJ Collins Associates, civil engineers on the project. And I'll just walk you through the layout here. As Bill mentioned, this is just going to be a single building in the phase 2 area now instead of the 2 buildings that were previously proposed. The Chipotle will be about 2,325 square feet. And also, as Bill mentioned, what looks to be like a drive-through lane is not actually a drive-through. It's a pickup lane and a pickup window where the customers order their food through an app, and then they get a time at which to show up at the store and pick up the food. So normally, on average, you only see about 1 or 2 vehicles in this pickup lane coming in to pick up their food. 98% of the time, it's going to be less than 4, significantly less than what's available for queuing here, but around 4 vehicles, 98% or less of the time. The pickup lane is significantly longer and can store more vehicles than that. So the layout of this is and the building was kind of driven by the shape of the lot and where the access drive is off of Boston Post Road, which is a full signalized intersection and driveway. And then with the what we had to do here from the original project is we had to kind of rework the parking area to allow this layout to work. And the parking originally in this area with the 2 buildings on the whole site was about 160 parking spaces on the previously approved plan. With the relocated parking and new layout here, we add a few more spaces and we end up with 166 parking spaces total on the site. So pretty similar to what the approved plan had. The parking will include accessible spaces that are required by the ADA and by the state. And we'll also have infrastructure included here for future electric vehicle parking spaces located in this area here. So we'll have infrastructure put in for that in the charging stations. The access to the site remains the same as approved previously with the full access driveway off of Boston Post Road, the signalized driveway that's out there today. And then the one-way exit from the site over the minor lane side. It's a one-way exit on that side. Access in and out of the Chipotle parking area and pickup lane is located well back into the site, as you can see in this plan. So there won't be any vehicle maneuvering or conflicts out near the driveway intersection with Boston Post Road. The access and circulation around the parking area is designed to accommodate emergency vehicles. We used fire truck simulation software to ensure that fire trucks can circulate in and around the parking lot. That access and circulation was reviewed and discussed with the police and the fire department, and their comments were included in the design. The on-site traffic will be well defined by traffic controls, both mounted signage and painted signage on the ground. Pedestrian connectivity was a key focus on this project as well. And sidewalks will be provided connecting Boston Post Road to all the buildings on the site. So we'll have walkways coming in along the Chipotle and back along the landscaped islands and over into all the supermarket area, and we'll have crosswalks over to the M&T Bank. In terms of the lighting on this site, the Aldi project included all new LED site lighting, and that lighting with this new layout, we'll just have to relocate some of the poles, move them around a little bit, and also maybe we have to add 1 or 2 poles, you know, to get the proper lighting for the parking area and around the building. I'm going to move to this next slide on landscaping. So this is the landscape plan, and there's a significant amount of landscaping proposed for the project. Landscaped islands in the parking lot, at the end caps of the parking roads, that will all help to define the traffic circulation and protect the pedestrians walking through the site. Approximately 20% of that parking area will be landscaped. Trees will be planted throughout the site in the parking areas around the perimeter of the site. And as can be seen from this plan, a significant amount of shrubs and ornamental plantings will also be provided throughout the site. The trees that will be planted in here include species of red maple, skyline, honey locust trees in the parking islands, and pin oaks around the perimeter of the property. A main focus of the landscaping is the area between Boston Post Road and the building. The layout of the site and the operation of the pickup lane resulted in the orientation of the building as shown, with the front of the building facing into the site, into the parking area, and the rear of the building facing towards Boston Post Road. So we worked closely with the planning staff to come up with a way to improve the visual, create a screening of the rear of this building from the street, adding landscaping, and it also involves some architectural features and improvements to improve that look and that visual in from Boston Post Road. As I mentioned, we did discuss this with the planning staff on several occasions and incorporated their suggestions and comments into the landscape design. In fact, the screening area on the Boston Post Road side includes screening that includes evergreens of emerald green arborvitaes planted to 7 to 8 feet tall between the building and the pickup lane. In addition, the area between the street and the pickup lane will include a 4-foot high ornamental picket fence out in this area here. zoom in a little bit. Oh, sorry. Wait a minute. In this area here, we have that ornamental fence in this area. And the screening also in that area will include picayune plants, inkberry plants and shrubs, and also ornamental switch grasses in here. So this area will be the pickup lane in this whole area, looking at the back of the building, will be well screened from the street. In this area, in the U shape here, around here, will be where we put the arborvitaes. To help with that screening. In addition to those plantings, the overall landscaping will include several varieties of perennials throughout the site as well. So again, as you can see from this plan here, there is a significant amount of landscape plantings proposed as part of the project. And just to quickly mention this landscaping, just to quickly mention on the stormwater side of this project, this phase 2 area was originally included in the original stormwater design, which was designed to comply with the stormwater manuals and guidelines. And this layout with the Chipotle really just resulted in a minor modification to the stormwater design, and it will still be in compliance with the original approval. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bill and go over some of the architectural features.
Thank you, Brian. My name is Bill McCabe, and along with my partner, Mark Mancuso, who is also on the call, we're the principals of Kincora Waterford LLC. And we've been working on this out parcel development for well over 6 years, and finally have a user that not only works well with the site, but has worked with us to make sure that hopefully it'll be acceptable to the town of Waterford. So the elevations that you see before you are not your standard prototype for Chipotle. Chipotle is essentially an EFS box with a steel-clad tower, recognizing that we wanted to adhere to the master plan and make this compatible with the adjacent Aldi that we developed back in 2017. We deleted the metal-clad tower and added a brick veneer, a brick that's in a color and type that is compatible with the Aldi, and took that not only in the tower, but almost around the entire building so that we could get a not your standard Chipotle building, but something that was more in keeping with the other supermarket building on the site. And yet at the same time, we kept the FOG EFS exterior along with their signage so they could maintain their prototypical look on the outside. Now, this building, as Brian and Bill have said, is only a little over 2,000 square feet. But the challenge here was really the width of the site. And when we met with staff back in early February, their main concern was that the rear of the Chipotle building, which in this particular case is the top left elevation, is facing Boston Post Road. And as Brian explained, we not only added landscaping to effectively screen the back of the house, but also pulled the building back a little over 20 feet from Boston Post Road to create a larger landscape area within that island adjacent to the back of the house. We also addressed the concerns about the look of the building by breaking it up with some architectural treatments. We've got some faux windows, as well as a prefabricated aluminum metal tubes that are on, that's the middle piece of the elevation next to the pickup window to kind of break up the massing. And lastly, one of the major concerns that were expressed by staff was the visibility of a roof ladder on the exterior rear elevation. You can't see that here as much as if, Brian, if you go to the next slide. On the bottom elevation, you'll see shadowing, which effectively is a bump out wall that wraps around the roof ladder and screens it from Boston Post Road. And you'll get a better view here of how that landscaping that Brian talked about effectively screens not only the back of the house, but does a good job from those who are in the pickup window line to screen that back of the house from them, as well as Boston Post Road. Am I missing anything, Bill?
One of the key points that I think, and just to reiterate what you were saying is, the site is somewhat unusually shaped, and that sort of forced our hand in terms of the configuration of the building. But, with great effort and expense, what we've tried to do was to make the back of the building as attractive as a side or a front. And to the extent that we had to put things on the back building, we either have screened them or we've actually constructed a faux, wall around, for instance, the utility ladder. So it was really an effort, really working closely with John Mullen and Mark on trying to make the building still maintain the brand identity of Chipotle, but fit in with the larger center. And I think, the inclusion of the brick, but also keeping some of the elements of the Chipotle brand, I think was an attempt to try to fuse two different ideals together, try to find some compromise there. I don't know if Brian, if you can zoom in on this slide for these renderings, because these renderings, I think, are, one of the things that's important. You can see that even this rendering is above street level. So if you can imagine just being even a few feet lower, you're going to see the top sort of band of the Chipotle, but the darker side was going to be almost entirely screened, and you won't see anything but that sort of top, light gray band for Chipotle, and then the brick tower on the back side. So I think it was an effort, on our part to try to make this as aesthetically appropriate as possible, and also create a new focus point on the project. The landscaping here is going to be substantially more elaborate than what was on the master plan or what was part of phase 1 of the Aldi's project. We think it'll be a really attractive entranceway, and I think it'll really, make the site as a whole a much more attractive location. So we hope that you'll see, you'll appreciate the fact that we made those efforts. And then if you just go down to the, down on the page to see the other one, there's a little bit more of even more of an aerial view to see how it sort of all puts together. And you can see a little bit more sort of that bump out on the back that covers the utility stair there. And again, that's not a cheap addition, but we did it just so that you couldn't see any of those utility type uses off the back of the building. But I think that's a pretty accurate representation of what you're going to see when the project's complete. Obviously, if you have any questions, Brian and I and Bill will try to answer them to the best of our ability. If you got any questions about specific landscaping or architectural treatments, but it's a pretty straightforward application on a somewhat constrained lot. But I think it's a overall improvement, certainly an improvement over what we were proposing 7 years ago for this portion of the site.
Good. I appreciate the effort that you put into this, and I also really appreciate the quality of the renderings. Really gives us a decent look at what we're considering here. So the around the south and the west sides, the existing chain link fence will remain. I see it's behind bushes in these renderings, but that fencing all remains.
Yes, fencing does remain.
All right.
Yeah, as you know, there's some pretty significant grade changes off to that side heading toward the Ocean State job lot. So the need for some more substantial fencing, I think, is appropriate over there, just from a safety and security standpoint.
Sure. Yep. Very good.
Well, like what you said, I appreciate we really get a good idea of what we're dealing with here, thanks to your efforts. Appreciate that.
I think also, one thing, a point that I didn't make is, and I've tried to make it, and for some reason I missed it tonight, is, Brian and his partner Mark are not strangers to Waterford. They were intimately involved in the development of the shopping center across from Crystal Mall, where Panera is and where Dick's is, and that shopping center, and they've really put a lot of their, now that they've gone out on their own, they're now, this project has been really important for them. And I think the Aldi's project, I think, has been a success. They're going to remain the owners of this. These are leaseholds with Aldi and Chipotle. So the kind of property management that you've seen on this site with M&T Bank as well, that's going to continue. So you've got a good operator who, has a proven track record in this community, adding a new tenant. So I think that's, I know that's not specifically something that you're supposed to look at in approvals, but I think it, in the reality, it's good. It's good to know the people that you're doing business with. And I think both Brian and Mark have a really good reputation in Waterford of running really, really professional commercial centers and making sure that they look nice, not just the day they build them, but, for years afterwards.
And I appreciate that, and that is evidenced by the inclusion of the irrigation for the landscaping. We don't often see that. It's nice to see lots of beautiful shrubs and things, but if there's no irrigation to take care of them for the first couple of years, they're gone. But
We don't want to have to replace them unless we have to.
appreciate that. Very nice. Ed, do you have anything to add?
I got a couple of questions. If you come into the site and the most southern entrance, I see the do not enter is only on the street, on the pavement. Do you think you should have a vertical sign there saying do not enter? You have a direction on how to get in, but you know what I'm talking about?
Right here.
Right here, if you could have a vertical sign that says do not enter, one way or.
Sure, in this location right here where the
Yeah.
pickup lane comes out. Yeah, of course. Yep.
Coming from the other end, you're gonna miss that one way in. And they might think that's the way in.
True. Yep, that makes sense. So that's a good point. We can add a posted sign in this location here.
And another question, just for clarity, when you say you added parking spaces, does that include the ones you took out of all these? Because you took out where I park.
Okay.
On the
Yeah,
side.
we kind of, as you know, they come alongside here now, so yeah, we have to relay that out, but like I said, there's a couple of additional parking spaces in this layout, so yeah. There's plenty of parking still available right over there at the Aldi entrance.
Now I got two questions for your traffic experts, and I don't have just queries. If you park on the Aldi's on the right there with it all the way back in the south.
In here.
Yeah, way back. And you're coming out and you're trying to exit the Chipotle parking lot. I'm afraid the guys in Aldi's are just gonna zoom out of there. And I don't know, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how well you can see. I see there's no stop sign for the Aldi people is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so, yep, we're specifically stopping the.
You're good, but I'm saying where it says first hydrant.
Yep, existing hydrant.
Sorry. There's no stop sign for the Aldi people.
Right, so back over here, this is the landscape plan, so this will just be a lawn in that
Yeah.
island, no shrubs in there.
Yeah,
So you'll have a really good visibility right through there.
yeah, well, I don't know. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
The second question, and again, I'm not an expert. It looks like you on the northernmost exit, you're coming out where they're turning left.
Coming out,
Right, the first, not the back entrance, the first one. You'd be coming out where they're coming in, turning left. And again, to me, it looks like a point of contention. I just wondered if you're better off moving the landscape down a little bit, and we're all for landscaping, so this is contrary. You could add some on the front end and take some on the back end. Again, I don't know what's best. I'm just throwing it out there.
So just to clarify, are you talking about this row here?
Right, right. So
Yeah.
when you're coming out, they're turning left. You know, I know when you go into that Aldi's lot, it's confusing to me.
You-
I
You're
don't
talking
know.
about, you're talking about people heading toward Boston Post Road.
No,
taking
no,
left
coming
in-
into the site.
Okay,
The
So
drive
they're gonna turn right and then they're gonna turn left.
over
Yeah,
here.
just like that, just about where you're coming out.
right.
So I don't know if you're better off moving everything down, 5 or 6 feet south. And
Like-
putting landscape over here and taking some away. Again,
I think one of the things there is the width of the pavement in there, that area, to accommodate those types of turning movements. You can see that it's much wider than the 24
I
foot.
agree. So again, I'm just saying,
Yeah, but I understand your point now. And when you have those sort of or sort of offset alignments, typically what you do is you widen the pavement to provide additional turning movements for people. And that's why there's also a stop bar there too, is to make sure that people watch people coming in to the first row of Aldi's. I understand your point, but I think there's enough pavement there to accommodate those types of maneuvers.
Yeah, it's also designed to make sure that all these trucks can move in, to make that maneuver as well. So we need to have that sufficient width of pavement for those maneuvers, as Ben mentioned.
But we certainly appreciate the comments nonetheless. And I think the comment on the sign on the do not enter
Yeah.
point, or for the exit for the digital pickup lane, is a good comment, and certainly a comment that I would encourage you to pass along to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Any other comments?
Jill,
Is Joy on?
Joy's here.
I just have just a couple, as Ed said, queries. So is the lawn towards the Boston Post Road, is that just for access to the ladder? What, I just didn't understand why that was lawn in there,
If you go to the landscape plan, Brian,
that U-shaped piece.
yeah. Why do we have a planted lawn, seeded lawn in that area?
I'm just curious.
I know the answer, but I'll let Brian answer it.
Yeah, well, I mean, so we do have the pickup lane that needs certain radiuses and so on. So there's an area, obviously, between the back of the building and the pickup lane that we're using. That area is not needed for anything hardscapes or anything like that. So we're putting in that screening that we talked about earlier with the arborvitaes and so on. And we also, in that area, have a utility transformer that's required by the utility company to provide the power to the building.
Right,
That transformers in that area in the shape of this allows us to screen that transformer as well from all this.
We've got to keep access to the transformers is the primary purpose of that area, but we wanted to be able to screen the exterior of that area so that you don't see the transformer from the road.
okay, and I think lawn is great rather than impervious, but how's a lawnmower gonna get in there?
Yeah, so this is all sidewalk area around the building.
Right. So couldn't you like just have like a turf stone with grass that basically doesn't need much attention, I would think.
I mean, there's options, I guess. It seemed to us that the seeded lawn area seemed to make the most sense here.
Okay, that's fine.
I think I think that's an interesting comment. I think we picked seeded lawn because we were trying to make as much green space as possible.
Which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, so I think based on our discussions with Chipotle and our utility designers, they felt that was an acceptable sort of ground cover rather than pea stone or something else in that area. So, if certainly if you want to make that comment, that's fine. But I think we were trying, our intent was to try to maximize as much green space as possible where we could.
And that's admirable. I just was curious.
Yeah, sure.
How the mower was gonna,
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's going to be a hand mower job, the push mower job in that area.
that,
Very good. Any other questions or comments?
We really appreciate you guys as always taking the time for us, and my clients particularly, and certainly look forward to continuing to work with you and hope that we'll have this open early next year, and hope to have you all come over and have a burrito or something.
Very good. Thanks, Bill. All right, is there a motion to approve?
I think the motion should include the addition of that do not enter sign at the exit, at the pickup window exit lane.
Good.
All right, motion to approve with said addition as Mark just reiterated there, the sign that Ed had brought up.
Very good.
You all set with that, Mark?
Yes.
All right,
I'm fine with that.
that's
Yeah.
my motion.
Right, the hanging do not enter sign.
Yep.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Then good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And
Thank you so much for your time tonight, guys. Look forward to
absolutely.
seeing you again
Thank
soon.
very much.
See you in a little while.
Take
Thank you.
care, everybody.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda. Discussion, well, first we have to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any-
By the way, Mark, I lost those minutes too.
All in favor of minutes from the last meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Now, item number 4, discussion of accessory dwelling unit review criteria.
So,
Mark, did you have anything to add to that?
I received the email. I don't know if you had passed that on to anyone.
Yeah.
I have it here.
Email.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I did not. Hold
Okay.
that one.
Sure. Let me share my screen here quickly.
I was looking for the actual regulations online. I couldn't find them.
Okay.
I don't know if I was not clicking in the right spot or.
Okay, let me bring that up. Okay, regulations of 3.36, which covers accessory dwelling units. And that was the ones that we had just enact,
Right.
right? And just a brief, the responsibility that was for DRB, just a brief description, which and I'll quote here, it's just a simple one line. That the exterior for any new structure or addition shall be designed to reflect and incorporate the architectural style and design of the principal structure.
Okay, so that's all there is to it. Okay.
That's
that
all
was
there
in-
is to it.
Right, that was in the correspondence from last meeting.
Yep.
I didn't know if there was more to. Okay,
No. And
Very
then that that will be reviewed by the design review board. But those
Okay.
are the standards that that were established.
all right, so there was some discussion at the last meeting as to whether or not every one of these that came up would need to go before this board in consideration of what Mark just read. I wrote a couple of sentences in an email this afternoon describing what I thought might be criteria for the ones that we would need to take a look at. That being, if the ADU is visible from the road, from public space, town-owned property, or from public waterway. If it's hidden down behind, someone's property and you can't see it from anywhere, it really doesn't pose much of a problem for us. And the other criteria would be if it were 100 years older or more, as there will be obvious considerations of matching materials and styles and things like that. Does anyone have any other considerations they think might warrant us to have to take a look at such a proposal, I guess?
I got a question.
Hypothetically, you said if from a public waterway, public right of way, wasn't really
Right.
visible or something, but let's say a neighbor. And let's just say the plan is this really ugly looking item that we couldn't see from the public right of way, but maybe the neighbor raises hell. Is that an issue? Do they have?
That was something that I almost put in my email because I was thinking along the same lines. If it obstructs the neighbor's view, or if it's right on their property line or something like that. I don't know, but I don't know if that falls into our purview or if that's zoning.
Yeah, well, in terms of the location, okay, if it was going to be a separate unit, dwelling unit, then it needs to meet the setbacks that a house would have to. Would have to meet.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be any closer to a property line than a house would be.
Yeah.
And I think what really your purview is really gonna be the compatibility of the two buildings.
Which is
Right.
in the
Which is that section in terms of that, the new structure be designed to reflect and incorporate architectural style.
Yeah.
Right,
okay.
Yeah.
right. So which now I think falls on visibility.
Right.
And are you looking to do visibility for the public perspective, general public? Or also with consideration of the neighbors? And how do we know that? Right, how would we know that? What the neighbor's view is going to be, if we're looking at a piece of property that is set back a ways from the road, that we can't see, the public can't see from the road, but how do we know what the neighbor's perspective is going to be? Piece of property. That's one thing to just, think about.
Right, and I was thinking along the lines too, but I mean, if it's gonna block the neighbor's view of the lake or the river or something. I can understand the neighbor having a beef, but I don't know that it's this board's.
It's not even the planning board's purview, right, for that matter. There's nothing in the zoning regulations in terms of distance and preserving this, things like that, or view sheds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't say anything for that.
I got a comment on the over 100 years because that seems like a large period. I don't know why we're not just saying it's got to be compatible with the existing structure architecture.
Well, that's what the regulation says that it's supposed to be. Would I propose?
So this is an addition?
Well, this is something that would bring it before us to decide.
Because
How'd you pick 100 years, John?
Just thinking that most anything less than 100 years old, those materials are more readily available and it wouldn't be as big an issue to try to match. I didn't really pick that, after the scientific consideration.
Yeah, really, I think, if we think about what we're doing is just establishing a policy for the design review board as to whether or not to review accessory dwelling unit applications that come in from the perspective of design compatibility, and whether or not you want to see every application that comes in. And for, I think for Joy's benefit, because she wasn't at the last meeting, the design review board was reviewing our first one, actually, that came in. Property owner had over 60 acres of land. The house you couldn't see from the road at all. The proposed dwelling unit you couldn't see from the road, or even from the house, for that matter, the way that it was situated. So the question really became, was it necessary for the property owner to go through the design review board process? Where you have other properties that might come in that would be more visible. And so does the design review board want to see every single one that comes in, or establish essentially a set of standards that would allow them to see those applications come in or not, for that matter. And in this instance, or in any instance that gets reviewed by the design review board, your suggestions go back to the zoning official. He is the person that's going to be signing off on permits. These applications do not go in front of Planning and Zoning Commission. It's a regular building permit process. And the zoning official is just one of the reviewers. But the way the regulation is written, the design review board provides the guidance to the zoning official as to whether or not what's being proposed is consistent and compatible with the existing dwelling on the property.
I think that both of those things that John brought forth are things that would contribute to the zoning officer and help. So I would say that I would think that would be a good thing to do.
And also, I think what was brought up at the last meeting as well was if there was any question on the part of the zoning official as to whether or not this really should go in front of DRB for some additional guidance, if you had questions or something of that nature, then it could go to John. John could take a look at it, not make a determination as to whether it's consistent or not, but whether it should be in front of the design review board to act as a complete board as to whether or not you guys want to review it anyway. So there is kind of that fail safe or that catch-all that we can always fall back on if there's any question.
Like it.
Sorry with me.
Yeah, certainly not written in stone at this point. We can
Nope.
discuss and,
We don't have any pending.
yeah, we can,
So you're not gonna say any,
think about it until the next meeting.
we could table it and further discussion or review. If anyone comes up with any other items or something that they want to discuss, we can certainly review that at the next meeting that's being held.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Shall we table it for the next meeting?
Well, continue,
Continue.
whatever
yeah, sure.
the term is.
Yep. Table it.
Very good.
Next one. Table it.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Very good. Next on the agenda would be a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you, Ed. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
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 Very good.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Great. Thank you all.
All righty.
Mark, how much more time do I